ever feel alone in the culture war, or see everything around you crumbling to ashes and dust, and you're kind of tired of it, but you feel like there's no one out there that would support you? Well, I've got 3 sites that actually might change your mind. So first we have MetaPCs. MetaPCs is a fantastic PC making company. They'll have pre-mades, they'll have all sorts of customs that you can make. You can get cases, possibly engravings and all that type of stuff. Like whatever you want, they can get it working for you. And they've got some pretty snazzy stuff. So check out MetaPCs. You can use the Geeks and Gamers code, which is 199, in order to get a percentage off of whatever you want to purchase. Check them out. Another one that's also really good is DEG Mods. DEG Mods and ayakamods, which I will show you in a second, both share a common enemy in Nexus Mods. So if you've ever tried modding a game, Nexus Mods has been more pro-censorship and not allowing you, the gamer, to pick what you want to pick, play what you want to play, and mod your game the way you want to mod your game, because they don't believe you have the right, because it might be politically inconvenient for them. So both DEG Mods and Ayaka Mods are both alternatives, and there are others, but these are the 2 main ones that I've heard about that can definitely change your view on who's out there and who's supporting what you yourself are looking for in any type of game or otherwise. Modding sites can be not safe for work, so please use your own discernment and know that you're not alone. There are other people like myself and Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, and the hundreds if not thousands of other channels that are trying to do something good in the YouTube sphere against this pretty nasty counterstroke against us. So check out those 3 sites if you are interested in supporting those that support us. I make no money off of this. This is purely because I support what they do. So have a great day. Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. We're having a bit of a fun, controversial, I guess, topic today. So, for those of you who are not familiar, Steam's been getting a bit of heat. And that heat is more focused on payment processing rules. It's been spun a couple times as if Steam's desiring to do this and that kind of stuff, and I want to see if that's actually true. So if you want to stick around, we can go over that stuff. But before we get started, I'd like to point out the Discord is still growing, and we'd love to have you. And we got memes, we got game recommendations if you want to see me stream something on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Central Standard. We've got just cool hangout stuff. We've got Lord of the Rings Battle from Middle-earth detailed download and instructions and all that stuff. If you ever want to play a game with me, there's a variety of games that I have that we can play. Or if we have just a variety of games open where we have servers that we can do private servers, or we can play an open world like in Guild Wars 2 or Elder Scrolls Online or whatever the case might be. It's a cool place to hang out. You should come hang out. It's in the description. Love to see you there. Also, if you enjoy anime and stuff related to that topic, whether it be Japanese news or whatnot, check out Crimson Law's channel. Should also be in the description. He does some great stuff on that, and he does at least one stream on like Saturday nights that you can catch him on. But he occasionally does have another one during the middle of the week. So I think it's a Wednesday stream. But if that's your thing and you're interested, check him out. Also, our very own Inquisitor, Unbearable 73, Matt. His channel is great if you're into things like wrestling, movie reviews, more pop culture kind of stuff. Check him out. You know who he is if you've been around here for a while. So helping out those guys will help me out just because I support them, and that's a good way for me to support them is by sending you their way. So, um, also check out the stuff that was played in the intro video for DEG mods, ayakamods, and meta PCs. Cool stories. Now, on to what we all actually are here for. It's not me. So, we have Grum's reporting on this. Steam is now taking down games that violate payment processor guidelines. Now, why would they be doing this? Is it Steam or is it something else? This is the big elephant in the room. The real lock on censorship comes from who controls payments. There are just a handful of companies, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, etc., that are basically legislating via monopoly control. Now, for those of you who are unaware or have not been in the conversation for the last probably several years, the last, I think it was back to 2010 time period, payment processors are trying to get their grubby little hands on what you purchase or are trying to purchase, who you're purchasing from, etc. Now, a lot of people would think, well, of course, it makes sense. They want to, protect their brand. Well, what's their brand? It's a card. It's a thing that carries money. And then you swipe and then payment system goes from your bank to them to produce stuff. So if for some reason they don't like what you're selling, they're not going to let you process payments. So as a business, you're going to crumble unless you find an alternative path. If you're going to take in customers, and the customers are like, I want to purchase something from you, your card's not going to work. They're going to block what you're trying to purchase. Now, keep in mind, if there was a way to anonymize or whatever, like make it so they don't know who you're buying from, what you're buying from, but all they know is that there's a transaction happening, that would prevent them from blocking stuff, because then they'd have to shoot in the dark wildly in order to block stuff. So basically the VPN for payment processors is what is needed. But I don't know if that's possible because of all of the information that needs to go in and out of a bank and whatnot. But like, if you set up a game shop, for example, and you're like, I want to carry Warhammer, I want to carry, Dungeons and Dragons. If you want to carry all this type of stuff, well, what if one day they decide they don't like Dungeons and Dragons? And anybody who tries to buy Dungeons and Dragons from you can't unless they pay in cash. What if they don't like the fact that you're selling Dungeons and Dragons and they prevent you from making any payments as a business owner or taking in any payments as a business owner? Well, they can just decide to do that because brand preservation, which is a very broad statement. If you're buying something that's it's deliberately against Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, etc., they might have a leg to stand on, but then usually they just sue the person and then that's kind of done with and you don't have to really worry about it. So it's a little strange, a little odd that they're going a little bit further in unless they're trying to control what they do or do not like. And this is dangerous because then the things that we care about, the things that we love, whether it be collectibles, whether it be books, movies, magazines, whatever these kids these days are doing, what if they don't like the company you're buying a tablet from? Well, now you have to buy from another company, but they're going to hike their prices up because now they're the only one in town and you have to pay them exorbitant amount of money. Well, they're probably paying these guys a lot of money to knock out the competition. This is essentially what the robber barons did back in the day, where they would monopolize a particular area, whether it be steel, whether it be railroads, whatever the case might be, and then basically didn't matter how they treated their employees. It didn't matter what happened anywhere because people had to go to them and they would sink anything. So like, for example, if you had a transportation company bringing steel from another area because you didn't want to deal with this company, well, they would just go over there and basically knock out the competition. Or they would refuse to do business with this transporting company, and the transport company would lose like 80% of their business, so they'd have to stop business with that small percentage of guys so they could keep their business running. That's how you bully people out of doing things that they're trying to do. Um, so in this particular instance, this has also been used against the Second Amendment companies. Should be these bad boys. So basically, if a company's like, I don't like that you're buying this gun. Well, I didn't ask for your permission. I'm just using the means by which you have freely offered to me for me to use you so you can make money. That's as far as this transaction should go between us and Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, American Express, whoever. So it doesn't make much sense that we have these processing companies telling you what you can and cannot purchase because they can pick and choose arbitrarily, and then you're out of luck. And that's that. Like, they could just say, you know what, we're not going to make this work for literally anything. So let's say we had a cashless society where we had no cash. There's no coins. There's no dollar bills. There's nothing. There's no bills of any kind. And all you had was a card with money on it, like credits. Kind of like a Star Wars credit system where you scan your little thing, boop, you have credits, whatever. Well, let's say, for example, that you were somebody that the company didn't like because you had beliefs that they didn't care about, or you didn't agree with them on something and you didn't vote for them and they found out, or whatever the case might be. Well, now you can't use the bullet train in Japan, or now you can't, use the bathrooms that are now going to be you pay to use. Like, they're just going to not let you do things because they're just going to like credit system you out of existence. And that's kind of the mentality of these companies. They want complete control because they can basically extort money out of companies by saying, you either go along with us and do what we want, or we're just going to knock you out of the sky. Now, Grums here says, while some content is certainly disagreeable, companies should not be dictating this to the rest of the world. This effectively makes them governments without process or representation. Now, I'm not completely sure what he means by content is certainly disagreeable. Maybe it's stuff he personally doesn't care about or doesn't like, and that could be quite a few things. But even if it's disagreeable, it doesn't mean you can arbitrarily decide it needs to be taken down. It needs to be removed from purchasability. I don't know what it means. Companies should not be dictating this to the rest of the world. It's okay to do it to us, but not the rest of the world. It just doesn't make much sense. If you can't do it to the rest of the world, you can't do it to us. That's the obvious thing. A company should not be telling other companies what they can and cannot do with their businesses if they're doing something legal. And even if they're doing something illegal, the companies should petition the government and say, hey, these guys are dealing in illegal goods, services, or whatever the case might be, and we don't want to be a part of this because we don't want to be held culpable for these things, which is a valid argument. Like, I don't want to be culpable if I have a payment processing company for somebody else going out there and getting something I have in my sales pool, but it's illegal and they're purchasing with my processing stuff. Well, technically speaking, I shouldn't be able to be gone after, but the world doesn't work like normal common sense, so you never know. But in that regard, it's a little confusing, but I do agree that it effectively makes them governments without process or representation. Now let's look at a couple of the guidelines, and the bottom one's the big one. Applications that fraudulently, this is the payment processing dealio. Or I guess there's Steam rules in general, but applications that fraudulently attempts to gather sensitive information such as Steam credentials or financial data, ergo credit card information, are not allowed. Well, this is good because it means they're not going to let somebody's program application onto their platform that's going to try to phish your information, and then it can be hacked, or you can lose your account and it gets sold to somebody else and they take your stuff, whatever the case might be. That's usually good. They don't have access to your bank account. They don't have access to your Steam credentials, yada, yada, yada. That's good. Video content not directly related to a product that has been shipped on Steam. I don't really know what this means. I'm assuming it means you don't put movies and stuff that's not related to games that are on Steam specifically. Like, I'd imagine. I think they didn't Steam do movies or something for a while. I don't know if they still do it, but if they did still do it, it'd be like, oh, we're gonna put this anime out. It's like, well, okay, well, there's a game that's related to that anime, so they'd sell that anime because, you know, the game's there. There's an actual tie between the two things, so there's a reason for it to be there. But if it's just like we're gonna throw a random video out there for no apparent reason, they apparently do not allow that. So you're not like posting YouTube videos and stuff. Non-interactive 360 virtual reality videos. This I don't really understand. I think it's more of it's not interactive and it's VR, but VR is supposed to be interactive, I think by definition in their minds. So virtual reality is you're interacting with the world, but if you're just rotating and that's all you're doing, you're not interacting with anything. You're just able to see everything. So they're like, no, it has to be interactable, which for the most part I think is not really a problem. Applications built on a blockchain technology that issue or allow exchange of cryptocurrencies or NFTs. This could go either way, but you can give Steam the benefit of the doubt over a lot of things because they've been doing a lot of work to keep us, you know, in a good place. Put it that way. They've built up a lot of goodwill, and maybe they'll stumble every once in a while, but they usually get back on their feet and then they're good to go. Applications with advertising-based business models. In other words, gotcha companies that are just throwing advertisements at you left and right. They like, you know, you're not allowed to advertise. I think this also applies also to things like Call of Duty games and whatnot that are doing a lot and like trying to insert real-time advertisements, whether it be for like Wendy's, Pepsi, whatever the case might be, into their games, and sometimes even in the middle of a match. It's just kind of like, no, you're not allowed to do that. That's a good one. That's a really good one. It doesn't belong in games. And then the big one, content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. This is where it gets spicy, because it makes it seem like they're doing this on purpose, but the way I've perceived this so far is that Steam has to do this or they have no payment processors. And if you have no payment processors, you can't buy on Steam. You can't sell games on Steam. So they're basically saying we're being forced by these, you know, PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, American Express, yada, yada, yada. We're being forced to do this because we don't want to shut our entire business down. It'd be bad if we did. So, of course, my dog is very, very happy right now. But, and when it comes to the adult-only content, I'm sure there's some adult content that they don't want to have anything to do with. But for the most part, I feel like Steam's been not particularly picky on that stuff. It's usually, for the news I've seen, is like, I think it was there's one game, I can't remember the name of it. There's one game where everyone was like, look, Steam pulled this game, but it was actually, I guess, the guys the developers of that game specifically pulled it themselves. They didn't, it wasn't Steam kicking them off. It was, they pulled it because of, I guess, backlash of some shape or form. But this ultimately becomes the big deal because is Steam trying to control what people can and cannot buy on their platform? To some extent, yes, because they have to. That's why like the prior rules from 10 to 14 are there. 15 just seems more like if you try to post a game on our content, which I guess could be anything, any type of application, any type of thing you can get from or through Steam, cannot break these particular rules. And if it does break these particular rules, it gets removed. And you're like violating this stuff. Like you're not allowed to do this. And the reason they do that is because if it does violate it, and then MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, American Express, etc., decides, you know, we're not going to let you do any payments at all, well, now Steam's dead in the water. They have nothing they can do. Now, if Steam decides they want to go out and be like, hey, we're going to make our own payment processing and these guys can go shove off, well, that's possible. But at the same time, you'd have to have like a Steam card, like a renewable Steam card that you could use. And that would put a lot of work on the people trying to use it. And also because like it's a card that only one place is going to be able to use. Now, assuming Steam continues to get big, because they are big, but as they grow, if they get big enough to do things like release the Steam OS as an actual true competitor to Windows, which would be very nice because I'm sick and tired of Windows, Microsoft being stupid and applying a whole bunch of stuff they don't need. But if Steam OS does come out and actually is a legit alternative to Windows, that would be fantastic. And that could also make SteamOS become a normal thing you find on a computer, and or as an option that you can get. Now, I don't know if Steam will have just like a basic SteamOS and then have like a paid version that has more work-related stuff on it, that's more like a professional version that you can pay more for so they can get money out of it and stuff, because it's not cheap. And like Microsoft squeezes money out of you in every other particular area, whether it be through advertisement, whether it be through, bogging your computer down and then like, here's a thing I could sell you. Yeah. They try to nickel and dime you whenever they can. And they do this for millions and millions of computers, if not billions of computers across the globe. So if Steam pops their toe into that area and completely becomes too big to be capped by anybody else, that could throw a wrench in the works. Now, if they become that big, maybe they could have their own processing plan. I don't know. But a payment processing plan specifically. That might be a thing that they're capable of at that point. But until they do, there's not going to be a whole lot they can do in this particular instance. So I'm more inclined to believe that Steam's not trying to screw us over and that they don't particularly care what you put on, except for things that are going to be harmful to them being able to sell. And they're not, I don't think, preemptively removing things unless those things preemptively break the rules that are placed. Because they have these rules in place. So if you go to apply for your application, whether it be a game, a tool, whatever the case might be, if you go to apply that onto the Steam, they're going to look at it. They're going to be like, okay, this isn't going to jack with us, and it's not going to get us, whatever. So if that's the case, well, then you can just put it on. But if it's something that is going to actually do harm to them by like causing them to have problems with the payment processors or whatever the case might be, well, then they're going to be like, no, you can't do this unless you modify these types of things, because they can't destroy their whole business because you're just wanting to sneak something on there. Or if something does get sneaked on there, like something was improperly titled, whether it be like it has AI developing source code or something in it, or it has AI images in it, and you didn't share that information, and when they asked you like, does this stuff have it, because they let people know like this stuff has this kind of content in it, and if you don't let them know, well, they're going to be like, well, we have to take this down until you redo this to either make it so it's not, or reinsert it to where we can look at it and then go from there. And I think that's important. So it keeps Steam safe, and if Steam's safe, we still have a little bit of freedom as gamers, because if Steam goes, we're toast. Like Steam and GOG are the only bastions, I think, of gamers that we still have, because Nintendo's going down the drain hardcore as fast as they can swerve that direction. Sony's never been an ally to gamers. Xbox used to be in the 360 era and then completely swerved as hard as they possibly could, and they're going down the tank and the drain. So if Steam goes, we're toast. Like, unless somebody comes up with a whole new gaming system. I know Sega's trying to revive, but if Sega's going to revive, they're probably going to do everything the same way as Nintendo, Sony, and Xbox. So it's probably going to be a mess. But if they surprise us and they come out of nowhere and we're like, no, we're going to be for the gamers and everybody else can show off, that should be helpful. But Steam's trying to stay afloat. That's how I see it. And personally, I want them to stay afloat. Excuse me. So that's going to be it for that. But I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Do you think that we're going to have all this as like a long drawn out war between Steam and players, or do you think Steam's going to fight the processors, or do you think there'll be any type of legislation or legislative action that can be done to curb the payment processors from reaching beyond what they're actually supposed to have access to? Whatever you think that might be, I'm curious. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Stop by the Discord and say hi, and let me know what you think there as well. I'm on Discord a lot, so if you're popping in and you're saying something, I'll probably respond within the day. So thanks everybody for hanging out. Keep an eye out for our Sunday video and our Tuesday live stream. Hope to see you all at the Tuesday live stream and at any videos we post. So thanks everybody, and remember, walk in the light, my friends.